Hey, what's up? Hope you're as excited as this kiddo to learn how to add text to your pictures, and you could make your very own memes just like this. In today's video, we are going to be looking at how to add text, how to warp text, how to put text to a path, and finally, how to make clipping masks out of text. I'm going to have you practice all these things by using this 2-4-Text-Tools starting document. So make sure you hit the download button, and after it downloads, I'm going to have you open this file in Photoshop. Remember, the very first thing we want to do when we get to Photoshop is do a file, save as, put it on your flash drive in graphic design in the correct unit folder. So we are going to add a text to this layer, and the first thing I want you to notice is that there's already text on our picture. It's this dancing with type. And if I look over at my layers panel, I'm also going to see a text layer that's called Dancing with Type. I know it's text because it's got that T there. And the name of the layer is whatever the text is that we've typed in. And you're going to see this when we create a new text layer. So to use our text tools, we're going to the toolbox. If you grab the T and press and hold on that, there's two types of tools. We've got the horizontal text, and horizontal is going to run left to right like the horizon. And then there's going to be vertical text, which is going to run up and down like a flagpole or a skyscraper. Let's just start with our horizontal type. And a big thing I want you to remember is that when we choose a tool in Photoshop, our tool options bar is going to change up here. So this is where you can choose what font face you want, what size, you want it crisp, sharp, strong, smooth, what alignment do you want? Do you want a color? And then in a little bit, we'll talk about this warp text. But for now, just be on the horizontal type tool, and there are going to be two ways that we can add text in Photoshop, very similar to how we did it in Illustrator. So the first thing I want you to notice is that when you're on the type tool, if you pull your mouse out, it's got this beautiful little I-beam. That's how you can tell you're using text. If it was a shape, it would show up as a crosshair, but the I-beam equals text. And so the first way that we can add text, just like in Illustrator, is simply by clicking. And when I click, it's going to fill it out with some pre-populated text, and I can type in whatever I want. So, hi, how are you? And if I want to change my text, I simply highlight it, and I use that tool options bar to change it. Anytime we use text, it works as the same as a transformation tool. So after you've typed it, you have to check, yes, I want that, or no, I don't want that. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to say no right now, so you can practice the second way, which is to click and drag a text box. When you click and drag, the text is going to only go within the confinements of that box. So if I'm typing along, my text will only go up to the edge of the box that I have typed in. If I do the click method, it's just going to keep going off the edge of my page. So I really like to do it where I use that text box so I know it sticks in the confines of that space. At this point, I don't care whether you decide to do the click method or the click and drag method, but I want you to go ahead and type in the word dance and go ahead and try changing that font, working with maybe the different size of the font. And if you want to change the color, remember when you click on the color box, you're going to have to actually change the slider and then select the color you want it to change to so you see it in that new portion before you click OK. So just make sure you choose, yes, I like this. Now, if we go look over at our layers panel, you'll see that Photoshop automatically created this new type layer, and it's called dance because that's what we typed in. And because it's its own layer, I can make whatever edits I want. So if I'm on the dance type layer and I go to the move tool, I can move it somewhere. I could use Control T to transform it, and I could increase the size. I could hover over this outer edge and I could rotate it. Just remember to click check yes for saving your transformation. Now, if I want to edit what I actually typed, so let's say I don't want the word dance, but I want it to say dancing, I need to actually go back to my text tool. So I'm going to go back to my type text tool. I'm going to hover over the words that I want to be changing, and I'm going to see this beautiful little I-beam. Then I can click into what I've typed and I'm able to delete, edit it as I want. This is the same as a transformation. So once I've done my edit, again, I have to check yes or no, I like that edit. So make sure you've used the horizontal type tool to enter in something like dance or dancing. Next up, we're going to try the vertical type tool. Works the same way as horizontal. You can either do the click method and it'll start going up and down, or if you don't want to do the click method, you can click and drag to get the confines box of how far up and down your text is going to go. I don't care what you do, but go ahead and type something in like dancing away. Feel free to change the font face if you want. Any other options like the color, the size, that's fine. So we've practiced horizontal type, vertical type, and now we're going to practice warp type. And if you remember, when we looked at our tool options bar earlier, there was this T with the arced line underneath it. That is for warped type. And warped type or warped text is a change in the text appearance. Now we're going to practice this with the text that's already there, this one that says dancing with type. So first, let's make sure we've selected the dancing with type layer. Then we're going to make sure that we're on the actual text tool because we're editing the text itself. And then we're looking for hovering over that text and seeing the I-beam. Click into the type, and then you can choose the little warp text button. Now, when we click that warp text button, we get a whole bunch of different options here. So we've got things like flag and bulge and weave and all of these different ways that we can change our appearance. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to choose flag as my style, and then I have some options for what that flag looks like. I can change the bend, I can change how far that bends to the right on the horizontal distortion or up and down on the vertical distortion, and I can click OK or cancel on this warped. Once I like it, I'm given that option to check yes or no on my transformation. And oh gosh, that is super ugly. Remember, we can always go back and change this. Again, just make sure that you're on the correct layer you want to edit. On your type tool, see the I-beam, click in. I can recheck my warp option. I can change my style back to none, or I could pick something different like the arc, and I could change it until I find what I like for my text warp. I don't care which warp option you use, just change that dancing with type layer to have some sort of text warp. Now, outside of actually telling that the text may look different and that's warped that way, if you take a look at the layers panel, you'll see that next to a text layer that has warped text, the icon has turned into that T with the underline under it, which was the same icon in the tool options bar that we had to choose to even warp text in the first place. Next, we're going to try text to a path, which is where text follows the shape of a certain selection or a path. And we're going to practice this by putting text around the shape of our dancer. So the first thing we need to do is select the object we want our path to go around. And it really does not matter what selection tool you use. So if you want to use quick selection, great. Magnetic lasso, great. If you want to do that AI and use that select subject, great. I'm going to use the quick selection tool. That's one of my favorites. And if I try to start selecting, what the heck is going on? Oh, if I look, I'm on the wrong layer. Make sure that you are on the layer you're trying to select from. So I got to go on the base layer of the dancer. I'm going to do Control D to deselect what I tried to incorrectly select. Now when I use my quick selection tool, that's working a lot better. So step number 1, select the object we want to make our path of text to follow. Remember, you can use Alt if you've got too much in a selection, or Shift if you want to add more to your selection. Once you have everything selected, you're going to right click on that and do Make Work Path and then click OK. And you're going to see that this worked because this path is this solid line with all these little dots. Once I have my path, I am ready to add my text. So I'm going to go to my text tool and I can be on either horizontal or vertical text. I'm going to use horizontal. And then if I hover over the path, it's going to change into the I-beam with this little wavy icon. That means I'm ready to click and it's going to add it to that path. If it's the box, it's either the click or the click and drag method. But if it's the dotted wavy line, then it's going to follow all the way around our path. I'm using just gibberish. You can use gibberish or you can type in something that you want. Now, once you've gotten all your text all the way around your dancer, you can change it all at once by using Control A to select it all. And then you can change the font size or the color or anything like that. And then just remember, as with all our text every single time, we have to check yes on our transformation or deny our transformation. The last type of text we're going to do is a clipping mask. Clipping mask is where you have text and then you have an image as the fill of our text. So for example, here is the zebra image or the zebra fill on the text wild. So we're going to add a clipping mask to our vertical type layer that says dance right here. And the first thing we need to do is figure out what sort of image or pattern that we're going to fill this with. So let's just head out to Google, do a tie-dye pattern, or I don't know, Skittles, whatever. Pick any sort of pattern that's appropriate that you want your text to be filled with. This looks great. Make sure you just right click and copy the image that you want to use as your fill. And then go back into Photoshop and do paste or Control V for our shortcut key. Then I'm going to use the move tool. I'm going to take my fill, I'm going to move it next to my text. Now the super important thing with a clipping mask is the order of our layers. So here's my tie-dye layer, layer 1, and here's my dancing away layer, and that's the text that I want it to be filled with. And first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to rename layer 1 over here. I'm going to name it tie-dye. And I like to think of a clipping mask as the opposite of making cookies. So normally when you're making cookies, you roll out your dough, you take the cookie cutter and you press it into the cookie dough. And we're going to pretend that our tie-dye image or our fill image is like the dough. And I'm going to use Control T. I'm going to roll it out. So I'm going to roll it as big as the text I need it to be. I'm going to click yes for my transformation. And now my text is like my cookie cutter, but I'm going to do the opposite version. So my cookie cutter used to go onto my dough, but in Photoshop, I'm going to put my dough on top of my text. So I'm going to move my tie-dye layer on top of my text layer. I'm just going to click and drag it. And then I'm going to use my move tool and I'm going to move my tie-dye on top of my text. And I'm doing the opposite. I'm going to push my fill picture or my dough down onto my text by right-clicking and choosing Create Clipping Mask. Then we're going to see that our tie-dye is now within our text. And if I use the move tool here, I can click and drag on that tie-dye and I can change kind of the location of where that tie-dye is within the text that I have rolled out. If I want my text and my fill to move together, I need to link them. So I would select the tie-dye layer, I would press and hold Control, and I would select my text layer, and then I would be able to click the little link button. And now when I use my move tool and I move that, the fill moves with the actual text. And I can tell I have a clipping mask because I see on my fill layer the down arrow shows where I press that dough into the corresponding text layer, which is underlined. If you've got an example of horizontal text, vertical text, warp text, text to a path, and a clipping mask, make sure you do a final save as and put that on your flash drive graphic design in your unit folder. Then call me over to check it out and get you the password.
Check it out, you're already a meme. Oh man, Chris, this computer is telling me that you done swifted up.